Good afternoon. I'm Marlis Humphrey, IAJGS board member and past president, and CEO of the DoJR Foundation, with an update on the documentation of Jewish records worldwide project. If you take the expansive global umbrella catalog experience of WorldCat, add search capability like Google, which points you to information held elsewhere by various information sources, as does Merriam-Webster's Routes to Roots archival document search, and then include descriptive information like Wikipedia, but with priority to records previously unknown and overlooked in areas at risk and/or underserved. Then you have the documentation of Jewish Records Worldwide Project, also known as DoJR for short. DoJR is building JCAT, the world's largest, most comprehensive catalog of historical documents of Jewish lives. Thank you to the IAJGS and its member societies for conceiving and nurturing the DoJR project through its initial proof of concept. For more than a year now, the DoJR project has become part of a standalone organization, the DoJR Foundation. Our DoJR progress continues to accelerate through collaboration. Collaboration is key to our success. We can do so much more when we work together. Here are some recent collaborations. We're in our third year of working with artificial intelligence, or AI. We continue to progress training of our AI models, specifically for handwriting recognition in several languages. This past year, with the assistance of the Joint Distribution Committee, or JDC, and thanks to Jeffrey Edelstein, who's speaking at the conference this week, the JDC has generously provided our AI team, including Hattie Bledger, who's also here this week, with batches of historical handwritten Yiddish documents from the JDC's archive. Ultimately, this will enable us to automate the reading and cataloging of historical record collections in handwritten Yiddish. And we just signed an agreement of cooperation with the Saul Kaplan Foundation for 2 phases of work together on AI training to extend our Russian language models. TKF is working towards using AI to make full English language translations of Russian records more readily available. Not yet officially announced, but officially signed. We've garnered the support of the U.S. Commission for the Preservation of America's Heritage Abroad. They are an agency of the U.S. Department of State. The grant agreement is to support a 6-month pilot project called Records at Risk Poland. The project will identify and describe the condition of Polish repositories that hold Jewish documentary heritage records. Records at risk are records unprotected by legislation, such as the archives of businesses, charities, and individuals, and any records vulnerable to impending damage or destruction due to natural or man-made disaster or environmental conditions. If this pilot project is successful, we have the opportunity to do similar surveys with the Commission's support in the remaining 28 countries within the Commission's remit. The Australian Jewish Genealogical Society of Victoria, an IAJGS member society, is heading into a new phase of work on DoJR. They have a 3-way collaboration underway. One of the organizations in their region with a long history and extensive records about people in the community is B'nai B'rith Victoria. The team is cataloging those records into JCAT. The head archivist from the Australian Jewish Historical Society came down from Sydney to provide assistance. The IAJGS DoJR team and the Historical Society archivist inspected 50 boxes of B'nai B'rith records, cataloged them, and also reorganized them. Next, they will be curating to remove duplicates and to leave the records in a better state and with an improved way to easily identify and locate them. And they're also holding discussions on digitizing the records and setting up more secure and archival quality storage for the originals. Besides collaborating with organizations, there is much to be gained by the Jewish genealogical community working together. Let's talk about why Something I Know is so important. Something I Know is a place where anyone can store information, tips, and ideas so that they won't be lost or forgotten. Here are some examples of the types of records or JCAT-related tips one might enter into Something I Know. One of our DoJR volunteers was visiting his ancestral cemetery in Brzeź in Poland. There really was nothing there at the cemetery. He then went to the city hall to see what more he could learn. The city hall suggested he meet with the regional leader, who then suggested he visit the local cultural center. And then the librarian at the cultural center pointed him to two albums of photos on the shelves. They'd been compiled by an elderly gentleman, Rybczynski, who was now in ill health, but he was able to meet with Rybczynski and learn that he had additional photos of the town people in his possession, not in the compilation. But going back to the photos in the albums, they were carefully compiled and included captions with names and information about Jews in the community going about their daily pre-war lives, and included, as an example, this photo of the son of the local butcher and the son of the baker at the market in 1939. It has their names, and it also mentions for the baker's son the street he lived on and his sister's name. This information is now in Something I Know, so it will not be lost or forgotten and can be shared with others. From Hadassah Osselin, past director of the Central Archives for the History of the Jewish People in Jerusalem. She says, even though Praga was not destroyed during the war, there are almost no records remaining for Praga, even for the 19th century records. I had a long conversation with the archivist in the Warsaw Archive about Praga, and neither of us can figure out why nothing remains. Yet we stumbled upon a Hevra Kadisha Pincus from Praga. We received it from a Polish contact, but later learned the original is at the National Library of Israel in Jerusalem. The National Library of Israel bought it from Sotheby's in 2010. Formerly, it was in the possession of a historian and professor, Hyman Abramsky, in London. Who knew? This is now in Something I Know. And by reading the JGS of New York City's acclaimed journal, DeWrote, we learned that they had a field trip last winter to the Jewish Theological Seminary. On the tour, they learned that there were 8 boxes of records from Marseille, France, records from the Jewish community from 1819 to 1906, including 2 volumes of marriages, 1 volume of births, and an 1847 census. What researcher looking for their French ancestors would think to look in the JTS archive for such records? As a side note, these records are handwritten in French, Italian, Yiddish, and Latin, hence the need for our DoJR AI work. Information about this collection is now in Something I Know. Wrapping up, here are some important takeaways. JGS leaders, please consider, before it is too late, conducting a records at risk survey project in your area. Identify the local repositories, especially the often overlooked organizations and even individuals holding records. Profile their holdings and circumstances, and if needed, create a Records 911 rescue plan. Just as in the DeWrote example, if you have a JGS newsletter or journal, you likely are sitting on a pile of important tips about lesser-known record collections. Start a project to review your newsletter archive, extract record collection ahas, and enter the information into Something I Know so it can be shared and it will not be lost. Please stop by the Lador Vidor Foundation table in the exhibit hall and pick up the handout with links to help you use the tools, join the journey, and know the latest about DoJR. And you can get a peek at the heart of JCAT as we are building it. Rich with several thousand catalog entries, the JCAT database is being showcased this week by lead architect and all things data expert Helen Stein. The database features collections from more than 200 custodial entities across 19 countries in a variety of record types in 10 different languages. While a lot has changed in the last 40 years in the field of Jewish genealogy, one thing has remained constant. It is Rabbi Malcolm Stern's philosophy that we achieve so much more through collaboration. So let's work together. Thank you.